The morning sun painted the Texas ranch in golden hues as Marcus Mack Harrison adjusted his leather hat and surveyed his vast empire. At 52, he owned the largest cattle operation in 3 counties, with oil wells dotting his land like metal flowers. His weathered hands, decorated with expensive rings, gripped the fence rail as he watched his prize bulls graze in the distance. Mack had built this fortune from nothing. Born to a poor farm family, he clawed his way up through sheer determination and calculated risks. Now, his name appeared on Forbes lists, and politicians sought his endorsement. Yet standing there in the crisp morning air, he felt an emptiness that all his wealth couldn't fill. His foreman, Old Pete, approached with the daily reports. "Boss, we got that meeting with the Denver investors at noon. They're mighty interested in expanding the operation north." Mack nodded absently. Business deals were second nature now. Buy land, drill wells, raise cattle, make money. The formula had worked for 30 years. He'd sacrificed everything for success: relationships, family, simple pleasures. His ex-wife Sarah had left him 15 years ago, taking their young daughter Emma with her. Mack had been so consumed with building his empire that he'd barely fought the divorce. He told himself it was better this way. Children needed stability, not a father who worked 18-hour days. The black Mercedes pulled up the gravel driveway, and Mack straightened his shirt. These Denver folks represented serious money, the kind that could double his operations within 5 years. He walked toward the house, his boots clicking against the wooden porch steps. As he reached for the door handle, a small voice called out from behind him. "Excuse me, mister." Mack turned to see a little girl standing by his gate. She looked about 7 or 8, with blonde pigtails and a faded pink dress that had seen better days. Her shoes were scuffed, and she clutched a crumpled dollar bill in her small fist. "What is it, child?" Mack's voice was gentler than usual. Despite his tough exterior, he'd always had a soft spot for kids. The girl's blue eyes looked up at him hopefully. "Do you have any candy?" "My mama gave me this dollar, and she said maybe the nice man with the big house might have some candy to sell." Mack glanced back at his house, a sprawling mansion with marble columns and imported fixtures. To this child, he must look like someone who had everything, including candy. The irony wasn't lost on him. "I don't sell candy, sweetheart. This is a cattle ranch." He was about to turn away when something in her expression stopped him. She looked disappointed, but not surprised, as if rejection was familiar to her. "Where's your mama?" he asked. The girl pointed down the road toward the old trailer park that bordered his property. Mack had bought that land years ago, intending to develop it, but had never gotten around to evicting the residents. It housed mostly farm workers and their families, people who kept the local economy running but lived paycheck to paycheck. "She's at work at the diner," the girl said. "I'm supposed to stay with Mrs. Rodriguez, but she had to take her baby to the doctor. Mama said I could walk around, but not go far." Mack felt something stir in his chest. This child was alone, wandering around with her dollar, hoping to buy candy from a stranger. It reminded him of his own childhood, when a dollar felt like a fortune and candy was a rare treat. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lucy," she said, offering a shy smile. "Lucy Chun." "Well, Lucy Chun, I might not have candy to sell, but I think I've got some cookies in the house. Would you like some?" Her face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? That would be nice." Mack looked back toward his house, where million-dollar deals awaited, then down at this little girl who was thrilled at the prospect of free cookies. For the first time in years, the choice seemed obvious. "Come on then," he said, opening the gate. "Let's see what we can find." As they walked up the driveway, Lucy chattered about her mama, her school, and how she'd never seen such a big house before. Mack found himself smiling despite the important meeting waiting inside. In the kitchen, Mack rummaged through his pantry. His housekeeper, Mrs. Gonzalez, always kept it well-stocked, though he rarely noticed what was in there. He found a package of chocolate chip cookies and poured a glass of milk. Lucy's eyes widened as she bit into the cookie. "These are the best cookies ever. Did you make them?" Mack chuckled. "No, my housekeeper did. She's a much better cook than I am. Do you live here all by yourself in this big house?" Lucy asked, swinging her legs from the tall kitchen stool. Most of the time, Mac admitted. It was a question he rarely considered, but hearing it from a child made the emptiness more apparent. That must be lonely, Lucy said matter-of-factly. Mama says big houses need lots of love to fill them up. Before Mac could respond, his assistant Jennifer appeared in the kitchen doorway. Mr. Harrison? The Denver investors are here. They're waiting in the conference room. Mac looked at Lucy, still enjoying her cookies and milk, then at Jennifer's expectant face. These investors had flown in specifically to meet with him. This deal could be worth $20 million. Tell them I'll be right there, he said finally. Jennifer nodded and disappeared. Lucy looked up at him with those innocent blue eyes. Do you have to go? She asked. Yes, I have some work to do. But you finish your cookies first. As Lucy ate, Mac found himself studying her face. Something about her seemed familiar, though he couldn't place what. Maybe it was just that she reminded him of his own daughter at that age. Emma will be 22 now, graduated from college probably. He'd sent money for her education through his lawyers, but hadn't spoken to her directly in over a decade. Mr. Harrison? Jennifer appeared again. They're getting a bit restless. 5 more minutes, Mac said firmly. Lucy finished her cookies and slid down from the stool. Thank you for the cookies, Mr. Mac. They were really good. You're welcome, Lucy. You head straight back to Mrs. Rodriguez now, okay? Okay. She paused at the kitchen door. Maybe I can come back tomorrow. I can help you not be lonely in your big house. Mac's throat tightened unexpectedly. We'll see, sweetheart. He watched from the window as Lucy skipped down his driveway, her pigtails bouncing. She turned at the gate to wave, and he found himself waving back. The Denver meeting went well. The investors were impressed with his operation and eager to move forward. But throughout their presentation, Mac kept thinking about Lucy's words. Big houses need lots of love to fill them up. That evening, after the investors had left with handshake agreements worth millions, Mac sat on his porch with a whiskey. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, but he barely noticed. His mind kept returning to the little girl who'd asked for candy and ended up giving him something he hadn't realized he was missing. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to Sarah's contact information. He hadn't called his ex-wife in 3 years. Their communication went through lawyers and accountants now. But suddenly, he wanted to know about Emma. Was she happy? Did she ever think about her father? His finger hovered over the call button, but he couldn't bring himself to press it. What would he say? That he'd spent 15 years building an empire while forgetting he had a daughter? That it took a stranger's child to remind him what really mattered? Mac put the phone away and finished his whiskey. Tomorrow, he decided he would check on Lucy, make sure she was okay, maybe bring some real candy for her to share with her mother. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness would change his life forever. The next morning, Mac drove his pickup truck instead of the Mercedes. He'd stopped at the grocery store in town and bought enough candy to fill a small bag. Chocolates, gummy bears, lollipops. He felt slightly foolish, a millionaire rancher buying candy for a child he'd just met. But something compelled him forward. The trailer park looked different in the morning light. Mac had driven past it thousands of times, but never really looked at it. The trailers were old but well-maintained, with small gardens and children's toys scattered about. Laundry fluttered on lines between units, and an elderly man watered tomato plants in a makeshift garden. Mac parked his truck and walked toward the address Lucy had pointed to the day before. A woman emerged from one of the trailers, wearing a diner uniform and carrying a lunch bag. She was small and pretty, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Excuse me," Mac called out. "Are you Lucy's mother?" The woman turned, and Mac felt the world shift beneath his feet. Even after 15 years, even with the lines of hard living etched around her eyes, he would know that face anywhere. Sarah? The name escaped his lips like a prayer. His ex-wife stared at him in shock, the lunch bag dropping from her hands. "Mac, what are you doing here?" Lucy came to my ranch yesterday. She asked for candy. I didn't know." He couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't process what this meant. Sarah's face went pale. Lucy? She went to your ranch. She said her name was Lucy Chun. I didn't realize. Mac's mind was reeling. Chun must be Sarah's maiden name. But why would she use it instead of Harrison? Oh God, Sarah whispered, sinking onto the trailer's small porch steps. I never told her about you. She doesn't know. Mac felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Doesn't know what? Sarah looked up at him with tears in her eyes. She doesn't know you're her father. Mac stared at Sarah in stunned silence. The morning air felt heavy around them, filled with 15 years of unspoken words and buried pain. He looked back toward the trailer where Lucy lived, his daughter lived, and tried to make sense of this revelation. How is that possible? Mac finally managed. Emma was our daughter. You took Emma with you when you left. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing mascara across her cheek. Emma was our daughter. Lucy is our daughter too. The words hit Mac like a physical blow. He stumbled backward, reaching for something to steady himself against. What do you mean? How can Lucy be our daughter? She's 7 years old. You left me 15 years ago. I was pregnant when I left you, Mac. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. I found out 2 weeks after I filed for divorce. I was going to tell you, but then what? Mac's voice was harsh, desperate. You never called, never tried to see Emma. You just sent money through lawyers like we were some kind of business transaction. Sarah stood up, her own anger beginning to surface. I waited for months, thinking you might want to be involved in our lives. But you never did. Mac felt the ground shifting beneath him. I thought that's what you wanted. You left me, Sarah. You said I was married to my work, that there was no room for family in my life. There wasn't. Sarah shot back. You missed Emma's birthday parties, her school plays, her first steps. You were always at the ranch or traveling for business. I felt like a single mother, even when we were married. So you decided to be a single mother for real? And you kept my daughter from me. I kept Lucy from a father who didn't have time for the daughter he already had. Sarah's voice cracked. What was I supposed to do? Beg you to care? Mac looked around the trailer park, seeing it with new eyes. This was where his daughter lived. His daughter who didn't even know his name, who called herself by her mother's maiden name, who had to ask strangers for candy because $1 was all her mother could spare. You've been living here all this time, right next to my property? The irony was devastating. His daughter had grown up in the shadow of his wealth, and he'd never known she existed. Not all this time, Sarah said quietly. We lived in Dallas for a while. I got married to David Chun when Lucy was 3. He adopted her officially. But David died in a car accident 2 years ago. I couldn't afford the house anymore, so we moved back here. It was the only place I could find work. She thinks Chun was her father? David was her father in every way that mattered. He loved her, Mac. He was there for bedtime stories and scraped knees and first days of school. He was what you never were. Each word was a dagger, but Mac knew they were true. He thought about all the business trips, all the late nights at the office, all the times he'd chosen profits over presents. He'd been a failure as a father to Emma, and now he discovered he had another daughter he'd failed completely. Does Emma know about Lucy? No. Emma and I barely speak anymore. After David died, she got angry that I'd remarried. She felt like I was betraying you somehow. She's in New York now, working for some finance company. She sends a card at Christmas, but that's about it. Mac felt the weight of 15 years of mistakes pressing down on him. He'd lost both his daughters through his own negligence. I need to sit down, he said, feeling suddenly older than his 52 years. Sarah gestured toward the trailer steps, and they sat in awkward silence. In the distance, Mac could hear children playing and dogs barking. Normal sounds of a normal neighborhood where normal families live their normal lives. What does Lucy know about her biological father? Mac asked finally. I told her that her father was someone who couldn't take care of children. That David was her real daddy because he chose to love her every day. And now? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Now I don't know what to do. She came home yesterday talking about the nice man with the big house who gave her cookies. She wants to go back and visit you. Let her, Max said immediately. Please. I know I have no right to ask, but let me get to know her. As what? You can't just waltz into her life and confuse her. She's already lost one father. I won't let you hurt her. I don't want to hurt her. I want to... Max struggled to find the right words. I want to be better than I was before. Sarah studied his face, looking for sincerity. What about your business? Your deals? Your empire? Are you going to choose Lucy over profit when things get difficult? Mac thought about the Denver investors, about the $20 million deal he'd signed just yesterday. Then he thought about Lucy's bright smile as she ate cookies in his kitchen. I'll make it work, he said. I have to make it work. Before Sarah could respond, they heard footsteps approaching. Lucy appeared around the corner of the trailer, wearing a school backpack and a yellow sundress. When she saw Mac, her face broke into a delighted grin. Mr. Mac, you came to visit me. She ran toward them, pigtails bouncing. Mac's heart clenched as he watched his daughter approach. She was beautiful and bright and completely unaware that she was looking at her biological father. Hi, Lucy. Mac managed, his voice thick with emotion. Lucy looked between Mac and her mother, sensing the tension. Mama, this is the nice man I told you about. The one with the cookies. Sarah forced a smile. I know, sweetheart. Mr. Harrison and I are old friends. Really? That's so cool. Mama, did you know Mr. Mac has the biggest house ever? And he has cows and horses and everything. Mac watched Sarah struggle with what to say. He could see the protective instinct warring with the desire to give Lucy some happiness. Lucy, Mac said carefully, I brought you something. He handed her the bag of candy he'd bought. Lucy's eyes went wide as she looked inside. All of this? For me? She looked up at her mother. Mama, is it okay? Sarah nodded reluctantly. Just don't eat it all at once. Lucy hugged the bag to her chest. Thank you, Mr. Mac. This is the best present ever. Mac felt tears prick his eyes. His daughter was grateful for a $5 bag of candy. What kind of father had he been that his child's needs were so simple, yet so unmet? Lucy, you need to get to the bus stop, Sarah said gently. You'll miss school. Okay, Mama. Lucy looked at Mac hopefully. Will you be here when I get home from school? Mac looked at Sarah, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. I'll be here, he promised. Lucy beamed and skipped off toward the bus stop, clutching her candy bag. Mac and Sarah watched until she disappeared around the corner. She's amazing, Mac said softly. Yes, she is. And I won't let you break her heart. How do we do this, Sarah? How do I become her father without destroying the life you've built for her? Sarah was quiet for a long time. I don't know, she admitted. But maybe we start slowly. Let her get to know you as a friend first. Let her trust you. Then maybe someday I can tell her the truth. Someday you can earn the right to tell her the truth. Mac nodded, understanding the distinction. He had years of absence to make up for, years of trust to build. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be quick. I should get to work, Sarah said, checking her watch. I'm already late for my shift at the diner. Which diner? Murphy's on Main Street. It's the only job I could find when we moved back. Mac knew Murphy's. It was a greasy spoon that served truckers and ranch hands. The pay would be terrible, the hours long. Sarah was working there because she had no choice, while he lived in luxury just miles away. Sarah, let me help. I can't know. Her voice was firm. I won't take your money. Lucy and are doing fine on our own. Mac looked around the trailer park, at Sarah's worn work uniform, at the life his daughter was living while he accumulated millions. This isn't fine, Sarah. You shouldn't have to struggle like this. It's honest work, Mac. Something you never understood. Money isn't everything, but it's something. It could help Lucy go to good schools, have opportunities, the same opportunities you gave Emma, the same father you were to her. The words stung because they were true. Mac had given Emma everything except his time and attention. He'd sent her to the best schools, bought her anything she wanted, but he'd never really been present in her life. I was wrong, Mac said simply. With Emma, with you, with everything. But maybe I can learn to be better. Sarah studied his face for a long moment. Maybe, she said finally, but you'll have to prove it. Not with money, but with time, with presence, with putting Lucy's needs before your own. I will, Mac promised. Whatever it takes. Sarah picked up her lunch bag and started walking toward her car, an old Honda with rust spots and a cracked windshield. Lucy gets home from school at 3:30. If you want to be here when she gets back, that's up to you. Mac watched her drive away, then looked back at the trailer where his daughter lived. 7 years old, and he missed every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone. But she'd accepted him instantly, trusted him completely, been thrilled with a simple bag of candy. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "Jennifer, cancel my appointments for the rest of the week. And clear my schedule for next week, too." "Sir, you have the Patterson land deal on Friday, and the oil company executives are flying in from Houston on Tuesday. Reschedule everything. Something more important has come up." "More important than the Patterson deal? That's worth $40 million. Mac looked at the trailer where Lucy lived and thought about her bright smile and trusting eyes. "Yes," he said firmly. "Much more important than that." For the first time in his life, Mac Harrison was choosing family over fortune. He just hoped it wasn't too late to matter. As he walked back to his truck, Mac tried to imagine what the next few months would look like. Learning to be a father at 52 wasn't going to be easy. Learning to earn his daughter's love would be even harder. But sitting in his empty mansion last night, he'd realized that all his wealth meant nothing if he had no one to share it with. Lucy had asked him for candy, but she'd given him something much more valuable, a second chance at being the father he should have been all along. Now he just had to prove he was worthy of it. 6 months had passed since that life-changing morning when Mac discovered Lucy was his daughter. Now, as autumn painted the Texas landscape in brilliant golds and reds, he sat on the small porch of the trailer he'd secretly bought and renovated, watching Lucy practice riding her new bicycle. "Look, Mr. Mac, I can go super fast now," Lucy called out, her confidence growing with each lap around the small courtyard he'd created between the trailers. "That's amazing, sweetheart. But remember to watch for rocks," Mac called back, his heart swelling with pride and protective worry in equal measure. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. Those first few weeks had been awkward and painful. Mac would arrive at 3:30 every day, sometimes sitting in his truck for an hour, trying to figure out how to connect with a 7-year-old daughter who still saw him as a friendly stranger. But Lucy made it easier than he deserved. She was naturally trusting and curious, delighted to have an adult who had time to listen to her stories about school and friends. Slowly, their afternoon visits became the highlight of Mac's days. Sarah had been harder to win over. She watched his every interaction with Lucy, ready to step in if he showed signs of reverting to his old, work-obsessed ways. The test came 3 weeks into their new routine when an emergency at one of his oil rigs demanded his immediate attention. Mac had stood in the trailer park at 3:25 p.m., phone buzzing with increasingly urgent messages, watching for the school bus that would bring Lucy home. The rig emergency could cost him millions if not handled immediately. But at 3:30 sharp, when Lucy bounded off the bus with a gap-toothed grin, Mac had turned off his phone and forgotten about everything else. "You stayed," Sarah had said quietly that evening, surprise evident in her voice. "I promised Lucy I'd help with her math homework," Mac had replied simply. "Some things are more important than oil rigs." That night marked a turning point. Sarah began to believe that Mac might actually be capable of change. The changes went deeper than just showing up. Mac found himself learning about a world he'd never bothered to notice before. He discovered that Lucy loved dinosaurs but was afraid of butterflies. She could recite the names of all the planets, but still needed help tying her shoes. She was fiercely protective of her mother and desperately wanted a dog. Mac had started small, bringing books about dinosaurs and teaching Lucy to identify different types of clouds. He helped with homework, played endless games of Go Fish, and listened to detailed accounts of playground politics. Gradually, he began to understand what being a father actually meant. The financial help had been trickier. Sarah's pride was formidable, and she refused any direct assistance. So Mac had gotten creative. He bought the entire trailer park from the absentee landlord and made improvements, new appliances, better heating systems, playground equipment. He hired Sarah's neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, as his community liaison at a generous salary to help with property management. When Sarah's car finally died, Mac had arranged for the local mechanic to find a low-mileage Honda that someone had abandoned and decided to sell for exactly the amount in Sarah's savings account. She'd been suspicious, but couldn't prove anything. Lucy still didn't know Mac was her father. They'd agreed to wait until she was ready, until the relationship was strong enough to handle that revelation. But Mac could see signs that Lucy was starting to wonder why this wealthy rancher spent every afternoon with her family. "Mr. Mac," Lucy said one day as they worked on a jigsaw puzzle together, "do you have any kids?" Mac's heart had stopped. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" "Because you're really good at kid stuff. Like, you always know which cereals are best, and you remember all my favorite things. Daddy David used to be like that." Mac had glanced at Sarah, who gave him an encouraging nod. "I have a daughter who's all grown up now," he'd said carefully. "But I wasn't very good at kid stuff when she was little." Oh, Lucy had considered this seriously. "Well, you're good at it now. Maybe you just needed more practice." If only it were that simple, Mac had thought. But maybe in Lucy's world it was. The real test of their new family dynamic came when Emma unexpectedly appeared. It was a Saturday in November. Mac and Lucy were raking leaves in the small yard behind the trailers, making huge piles for Lucy to jump in. Sarah was working a double shift at the diner, and Mac had volunteered to watch Lucy for the day. These solo days had become precious to him. Time when he could focus completely on his daughter without the complexity of Sarah's watchful presence. "Mr. Mac, make the pile bigger. I want to disappear completely." Lucy giggled, gathering armfuls of leaves. Mac was adding to the pile when he heard a car door slam. He looked up to see a young woman with familiar blonde hair and his own blue eyes walking toward them. His heart nearly stopped. "Dad!" Emma's voice was uncertain, confused. Mac straightened slowly, still holding a rake full of leaves. "Emma, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing." Emma's gaze shifted to Lucy, who had frozen mid-leap toward the leaf pile. "Who's the kid?" Lucy looked between Mac and the stranger, sensing tension. "I'm Lucy," she said with 7-year-old directness. "Who are you?" "I'm..." Emma faltered, looking at Mac for guidance. "Emma is my other daughter," Mac said quietly. "Lucy, this is Emma. Emma, this is Lucy." The weight of that introduction hung in the air. Emma's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Your other daughter? Dad, what's going on here?" Lucy, oblivious to the emotional landmines around her, brightened immediately. "You're Mr. Mac's daughter? That's so cool. I didn't know he had a daughter. Are you going to play in the leaves with us?" Emma stared at Lucy, then at Mac. "Can we talk privately?" Mac nodded toward the trailer. "Lucy, why don't you keep working on that leaf pile? I'll be right back." Inside the small trailer, Emma turned on him with barely controlled anger. "What the hell is this, Dad? Who is that child?" "She's your sister," Mac said simply. "My sister? How is that possible? Mom never mentioned." Emma stopped, realization hitting her. "Oh God, Mom was pregnant when she left you, wasn't she?" Mac nodded. "I just found out 6 months ago. Lucy doesn't know I'm her father yet." Emma sank into one of the small kitchen chairs. "So you've been playing house with your secret daughter while ignoring the one you actually raised?" "I didn't ignore you, Emma. I sent money for everything you needed. Money." Emma's voice cracked. "You think that's what I needed? I needed a father, Dad. I needed you to show up to my soccer games and help with my homework and tell me you were proud of me." Mac felt the familiar guilt wash over him. "I know I failed you. I was so focused on providing for you that I forgot to actually be with you. And now you're being with her instead." Through the window, they could see Lucy building a leaf fort, completely absorbed in her play. She looked so innocent, so trusting. "I'm trying to do better this time," Max said quietly. "I'm trying to be the father I should have been to you." Emma was quiet for a long moment, watching Lucy through the window. "She doesn't know?" "Not yet. We're waiting for the right time." "And her mother?" "Mom's okay with this." "Your mother isn't involved. Lucy's mother is Sarah." It's complicated." Emma's head snapped up. "Sarah? You mean you cheated on Mom?" "No. Sarah is your mother. Lucy is Sarah, and I had another daughter after you." I didn't know about Lucy until recently. Emma stared at him in confusion. Mom had another baby? When? Why didn't she tell me? Mac realized he'd never gotten the full story from Sarah about Emma's reaction to Lucy's existence. Clearly, there were gaps in communication all around. Maybe you should ask your mother about that, Mac said carefully. They were interrupted by a knock on the trailer door. Lucy peeked her head in, leaves still clinging to her hair. Mr. Mac? I finished the leaf fort. Come see. Mac looked at Emma, then at Lucy's excited face. We'll be right out, sweetheart. When Lucy disappeared again, Emma stood up. I came here to tell you that I'm getting married next spring. I wanted to invite you to the wedding, even though we barely speak. Mac felt his chest tighten. Emma, I'd be honored to come to your wedding. Would you? Emma's voice was skeptical. Or would you be too busy playing daddy to your new favorite daughter? You're both my daughters. I love you both. You love her, Emma said, gesturing toward the window where Lucy was visible. You actually spend time with her. You know what she likes and what she's afraid of. You're the father to her that you never were to me. Mac wanted to deny it, but he couldn't. The truth was, he was a better father to Lucy than he'd ever been to Emma. Not because he loved Lucy more, but because he'd learned from his mistakes. He'd realized what mattered. It's not too late for us, Emma, he said desperately. We could start over. I could learn to be a better father to you too. Emma laughed bitterly. I'm 23 years old, Dad. I don't need a daddy anymore. I needed one when I was 7, like she is now. Through the window, they watched Lucy attempting to build a leaf castle. She was humming to herself, completely content in her small world. She's lucky, Emma said softly. She gets the version of you that I always wanted. Mac felt tears prick his eyes. Emma, please. Let me try to make things right with you. Emma was quiet for a long time, watching her half-sister play. Finally, she said, Tell me about her. What's she like? Over the next hour, Mac told Emma about Lucy's love of dinosaurs, her fear of butterflies, her incredible memory for stories, her kindness to other children. As he talked, he saw Emma's expression soften. She sounds like a good kid, Emma admitted. She is, and she would love to have a big sister. Emma was quiet, considering this. Does she know about me? I've mentioned that I have a grown-up daughter, but no details. Mr. Mac, Lucy's voice called from outside. The leaf castle is done. Come see. Emma stood up suddenly. I want to meet her properly. As her sister. They went outside together, and Mac watched nervously as Emma approached Lucy. So, Emma said, crouching down to Lucy's level, tell me about this castle. Lucy's face lit up. It's for the Leaf Princess. She needs somewhere safe to live during the winter. Want to help me make a moat? Emma glanced at Mac, then smiled at Lucy. I'd love to help with the moat. For the next 2 hours, Mac watched his daughters play together. Emma seemed amazed by Lucy's imagination and enthusiasm, while Lucy was thrilled to have someone new to share her games with. When Sarah returned from work that evening, she found all 3 of them covered in leaves and dirt, laughing over hot chocolate in the trailer kitchen. Well, Sarah said, taking in the scene, this is unexpected. Mac made introductions, and Sarah invited Emma to stay for dinner. Over a simple meal of spaghetti and meatballs, the 4 of them began to feel like something Mac had never experienced before, a real family. That night, after Lucy had gone to bed and Emma had left for her hotel, Mac and Sarah sat on the trailer steps under the stars. She's wonderful, Sarah said, referring to Emma. I always wondered what she'd be like as an adult. She's angry with me, Max said, and she has every right to be. But she came here. That has to mean something. Mac nodded. She's getting married next spring. She invited me to the wedding. That's good, Mac. That's a start. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the trailer park. Sarah, Mac said finally, I've been thinking about Lucy. About telling her the truth. Sarah tensed slightly. What brought this on? Today, with Emma here, it felt like we were a family. Not a complete family, but pieces of one trying to fit together. Lucy deserves to know where those pieces come from. Are you sure you're ready for that conversation? Once she knows, everything changes. Mac thought about the past 6 months, about all the afternoons spent learning to be a father, about the joy he felt every time Lucy smiled at him. "I'm ready," he said. "But only if you think Lucy is ready." Sarah considered this for a long time. She's been asking more questions lately, about why you spend so much time with us, about why you care so much about her. I think she's starting to figure out that our relationship is different from friendship. So we tell her, Sarah agreed, but gently, and we make sure she knows that nothing has to change if she doesn't want it to. Mac nodded, though he hoped desperately that Lucy would want things to change. He hoped she would want him as her father, officially and completely. The conversation with Lucy took place a week later. They planned it carefully, choosing a Saturday morning when they could have privacy and time. Mac brought Lucy's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes, and they ate together in the small trailer kitchen. "Lucy," Sarah began gently, "Mr. Mac, and I need to tell you something important." Lucy looked between them, suddenly serious. "Am I in trouble?" "No, sweetheart," Mac said quickly. "You're not in trouble. But we have something to explain about who I am." Lucy waited, her 7-year-old instincts telling her this was big. "You know how Daddy David was your papa because he loved you and took care of you?" Sarah continued. Lucy nodded. "Well, before Daddy David, there was another man who helped make you. Like how plants need seeds to grow, babies need a mama and a biological papa." Lucy's eyes widened as understanding began to dawn. She looked at Mac with new recognition. "Mr. Mac is my biological papa?" "Yes," Mac said softly. "I'm your biological father, Lucy. But I want you to know that doesn't have to change anything between us if you don't want it to." Lucy was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, she said, "Is that why you're so good at taking care of me? Because you're my papa?" Mac's throat tightened. "Maybe. I hope so. And Emma is really my sister, not just your other daughter. She's really your sister." Lucy considered this seriously. "Does this mean I can call you Papa if I want to?" Mac felt tears spring to his eyes. "You can call me whatever feels right to you, sweetheart." Lucy slipped off her chair and climbed into Mac's lap, something she'd never done before. "I think I'd like to call you Papa," she said simply. "If that's okay." Mac wrapped his arms around his daughter and held her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and the sweetness of childhood. "That's more than okay," he whispered. "That's perfect." Later that evening, after Lucy had fallen asleep clutching a new stuffed dinosaur Mac had brought her, Sarah and Mac sat on the porch steps again. "She took it well," Sarah observed. "Better than I deserved," Mac admitted. "Sarah, I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Sarah waited. Is there any chance for us? As a family? I know I hurt you badly, and I know I have years of mistakes to make up for. But these past 6 months, being here with you and Lucy, it's the happiest I've ever been." Sarah was quiet for so long that Mac thought she wouldn't answer. "I don't know," she said finally. "I'm not the same person I was 15 years ago, Mac. And neither are you. We'd be starting from scratch, learning who we are now." "I'd like to try," Max said, "if you're willing." Sarah looked at him in the dim porch light, seeing the man who'd missed their first daughter's childhood, but was determined not to miss their second daughter's. "Maybe," she said softly, but slowly. "Lucy comes first, always." "Always," Mac agreed. 6 months later, they were married in the small garden behind the trailer park, with Lucy as flower girl and Emma as maid of honor. The guest list was small: ranch hands, diner regulars, neighbors from the trailer park. It was nothing like the elaborate society wedding Mac might have imagined for himself years ago. It was perfect. Mac never did complete that $40 million Patterson land deal. He'd learned that some opportunities, once missed, couldn't be recovered with money. But he'd also learned that the most valuable opportunities often came disguised as interruptions to more important plans. His empire continued to prosper, but now it had a different purpose. Instead of building wealth for its own sake, Mac was creating something to pass on to his daughters, both of them. Emma had joined the company after her wedding, bringing fresh ideas and a different perspective. Lucy talked about wanting to be a veterinarian who helped both cows and dinosaurs, which Mac thought was an excellent career plan. On quiet evenings, when Lucy was doing homework at the kitchen table and Sarah was reading nearby, Mac sometimes thought about that morning when a little girl had asked him for candy. She'd been looking for something sweet to brighten her day. She'd ended up giving him something far sweeter in return. The chance to be the father he'd always had the potential to be, but had never learned to become. Now, when business associates complained about his changed priorities or questioned his decision to spend afternoons at school plays instead of board meetings, Mac would think about Lucy's bright smile and Emma's growing trust and Sarah's gentle presence in their rebuilt life. He'd built an empire once by choosing profit over people. He'd built a family by finally learning to choose love over everything else. And of all his successes, the family was the only one that truly mattered.